Welcome, welcome. Lovely to have you guys here. Lovely to have the audience with us as well. And just for your information, we will have time for a quick Q&A after this conversation as well. So when we talk about shortcuts to a resilient digital society, I think this is as much as it is about learning from the past as well as looking at current developments, be it at the technical side, be it at the legal side, and so on. Arne, perhaps we can start with you. How would you and Cybernetica approach this topic of a resilient digital society today?
Okay, yeah. Resiliency, it's basically ability of system to work under the attacks, under adverse conditions. It's a security topic, and if you talk about security, we have to use these old sayings that chain is as strong as is the weakest link. And I think that the weakest link in this case is people. So basically the people have to work under attack, they have to rebuild the systems under attack, set up new network connections, set up new crypto tunnels, move large amount of data from one platform to another, set up servers, etc. It all needs a skill. It all needs coordination, and it can only be kind of like learned through practice. And if you don't practice it daily, then you are not ready to handle those kind of like a case. So I would say that biggest mistake would be to take this practice away, to outsource those critical functions, to basically start using simpler solutions at the peacetime, build some kind of redundant systems for the crisis or wartime. I don't think that this is a good strategy. So basically have a one system that can be used at the peacetime, at the wartime, have a set of people who can manage it. This is the first thing that I would like to say. And second thing is, don't make the life of those people harder by using inappropriate technological solutions. So I very strongly believe that governmental systems should be distributed. 24 years ago, I did the security analysis of the X-road concept. I proposed to abandon the concept of centralized system and build a distributed system. I managed to defend this viewpoint. I got the chance to lead the team who built the X-road. And the X-road has been running 24 years continuously. So I would say that this is a pretty resilient system. And yeah, today our company has gone further. We have developed a successor for X-road, UXP. It's used in several countries. It's also used in Ukraine. And I'm really sad what the Ukrainian people have to suffer. But I'm really proud that we can help them also with the technology. So that's my kind of like...
I can just follow up on one of the first points that you made about this building up capacity and then some organizations abandoning that capacity to maintain this high level of resilience. You don't necessarily have to mention a particular country or organization,
No.
but has this happened somewhere where you've seen sort of the leadership take it a bit too easy and relaxing their stance?
Yeah. I think it happens everywhere, because those like a simple solutions, they are very kind of like very nice, very alluring. But by giving away the control of your critical infrastructure, critical capabilities, yeah, I think it happens in many places.
Humans are complacent all around the world. Yes. Perhaps we can head over to Laura next. Of course, as the CEO of Proud Engineers, you've seen the development of digital societies both in Estonia and abroad. What is your view on these shortcuts to a resilient digital society?
Thank you, Florian, and welcome also on my behalf. Taking from what Arne has spoken, I would take one step back, and I would say that resilience for me is ability of a society to function on physical and digital space, whatever crisis we have. And recent years we have experienced quite many crises, different ones. And as government's utmost duty is to serve its people, then to have those services up and running for people in digital and physical sphere all the time, so that they can live their lives, and that's why I think it's very important not only to think of how to learn from crisis, but not only to be reaction-based, but also to think how flexible we can be. And I'm as my background is law, then very often lawyers are asked after crisis is done, then there is the assessment, what should we change in our laws in order to be able to be more resilient in the future. And my answer is that we never know what the next crisis would be, and that's why being flexible, being able to adapt new crises is definitely something that we need to keep in mind. So that is one part. To get more technical and to get to digital society, then I believe electronic identity being the utmost importance of having for a society, and then data exchange, as Arne spoke about, to have the different systems talking to each other and offering then those services that are meaningful for the people. And then as our first keynote yesterday, maybe you remember from Google Threat Intelligence, Vice President of Google, Sandra talked about the government's duty to function also in digital sphere. Whatever happens, then I think also we need to think of our systems to be able to be hosted in cloud, be it then in the territory of the country, or also abroad when something happens here in the territory. So Estonian data embassy example that has been talked a lot is definitely one of the examples where the digital society has to move when the resilience is important and in the agenda of the government.
I think, again, at several levels, we've now heard effectively everything being put together to the notion of redundancy, right? Whether we talk about not just having one form of authentication for electronic identities, like the ID card, but also smart ID, but also mobile ID. Whether we talk about redundancy in terms of data storage with the data embassy, as you mentioned. I think that's one of the learnings that we as an Estonian collective digital society have taken away from the last few decades. Tarmo, how does your experience feed into this topic? Can you tell us more about what Helmes does in this area?
Yes, thanks. Good day, good afternoon from me as well. I think one of the few baselines what we understand as a resilience, that it's not a technical question at all, and I don't want to define resilience based on some kind of crisis, but take more positive approach, because just life is changing, change definitely is happening, but you just don't know what is happening. You don't know what is happening in the next 10 seconds here, what I'm going to talk and discuss. So there are a few pillars or bullet points what should be there. First, definitely is trust, especially in electronic world. The second is transparency. You need to understand how the systems are working, how your data are used, and so on. And third, there should be agility as well in place. And resiliency for me is the part to cope with the changes is one part. The second and even bigger is the opportunities what you might have with the change. It is a growth, it is an innovation, and even better if these platforms or the digital society can be the source of change itself. Means that we are able to be in the front run, not that we are just taking examples from big US companies, but why not we should be example. And I think Estonian e-government is one of the great examples that how to create this positive change and how to be a role model of change.
You mentioned the role model aspect, and I would like to use that word to open up the next round of questions. I mean, of course, this side event is powered and organized by the Estonian ICT cluster. And when we look at all the different Estonian companies that you may or may not have come into contact with, but also people working at the Estonian government, where often they switch back and forth between public and private sector, what you will have probably heard as well is that we're quite open with regards to failures. So there have been some setbacks, there have been the cyber attacks of 2007 that probably many in the room have heard about. What I would like to discuss perhaps is if you could each choose one area or one incident, one situation where something has happened in Estonia, not necessarily the biggest explosion, but perhaps also something that has gone under some people's radar. What the reaction from that was and how we can take that expertise to other countries as well. Perhaps, I don't know who wants to take this first. I see you nodding already. Do you have an idea?
Why not?
Sure, go for it.
Yes, one good example, once again on the positive side, I try to keep the positive note always, so is that Estonian digital society has been there almost 30 years. Within 30 years, the expectations of the citizens and businesses have changed a lot. For example, in early 2000s, our government slogan was that we should find our own Nokia. Where is Nokia now? Then we introduced the services and we were proud that, okay, we have 99 point something services online. But what happened was that we just had these physical services copied online on the same way. But then the change happened so fast that people get used to with the apps, Netflix, all kind of modern platforms. And based on the Estonian Digital Society platform, the same platform allowed us to bring in as well the third area of the services, where services needs to be proactive, personalized, and citizens and businesses, they should feel that government is there for them, not vice versa. And just to give a simple example from the everyday life of the people, it's a birth of child, for example. It used to be so that we had all these services what's in the process of getting a child online, but there was 20 different services provided by 7 different organizations. And you, as a lucky lady at the time, you need to understand how the government works. Where are these 20 different services? You should all the time initiate the services, but what people expect nowadays, based on these experiences, what they get from the other apps, what they have on the phone, is that when there is already fact known that there is such an event is happening, government is already proactively starts one user journey instead of 20 different services. So, and it interacts automatically with the citizens so that we all have the data there. We have government knows, the hospitals knows, everyone knows what is happening, and this is quite a seamless process. And it is automated in such way that person feels that government is supporting the person, not the vice versa. So this is what our, basically the platform, even after being the same almost 30 years, allows to cope with the change in the real lives as well, not only the crisis.
So you would argue that trust-building mechanisms are a contributing factor to resilience as well at the end of the day, because they strengthen the bond between the citizenry and the government. Would that be fair to say?
That's the trust is foundational. Yep. Without the trust, we are not able to build these seamless services, because if the organizations or institutions and even the citizens does not trust the service, so then it does not fly.
Arne, I saw you raise your finger real quick. Laura, if we can come to you right after, is that okay?
Totally fine. Gentlemen first.
Thanks. Okay, yeah. I think that we have had one real countrywide digital crisis so far. And it was in 2017 when our ID card Czech researchers discovered the flaw in our ID card. So basically, half of our ID cards should have been revoked. And at this point of time, we had in some areas 100% dependency from ID card. And our prime minister was talking about this every night in the news, like a news program, like a main news program. So it was a real crisis. It was real digital atomic bomb ticking at this time. And I would like to come back to my first point about having kind of like a competence and having people, because we managed to solve this crisis. We managed to implement the system for over-the-air updating of ID cards, going from RSA cryptography to elliptic curve cryptography, like keeping the continuity of the service. So the medical people were all able to work with their systems that demanded ID card. It took some time, and I think that this shows that we had this a capacity inside the country to solve this kind of a real, I would say, existential crisis, because it would have been a really, really bad consequences for us. And I think that probably only real crisis. Of course, we have many small events, but also what I'm really proud about is a transparency, that the approach that government took when they talked about this incident. They didn't want to hide it or cover it, but they handled it really properly.
The point of transparency resonated with me. I worked at the State Chancellery in 2017, exactly when that crisis came about. And I remember, I can't recall whether it was 2 or 3 or 4 days, it was briefly discussed internally, how are we going to go about this? But very fast, the Prime Minister decided we're going to do daily crisis communications meetings, exactly what you said. It looked like a news program. And just to trust the population that if we share with them the degree of certainty or uncertainty that we have at the government level, if we share that with them, there's going to be a stronger degree of trust in general. So I think this is one of those messages that I still see my home country Germany, but also other countries not learning, is that we're still trying to sweep small and medium-sized crises under the carpet in the hope that nobody finds out, and then 5 years later we find out, and then I can't even take offense at people not trusting digital services because their mistrust in that instance is justified. Laura, your thoughts?
Yes, so I actually wanted to take the same example. And why? Because I was back then working for Estonian Minister of Economic Affairs and Communications, being responsible for the legal framework for EID. And I remember I was there the first Friday when we gathered at State Information System Authority, and we all thought that, okay, this is the training. It won't go further. Being in the crisis as a legal person, helping to find the way, we were lucky. And that is why I want to add on what Arne said, that in our legislative system we had the possibility for remote renewal. So we didn't have to call all the people to the Police and Border Guard Board, but they were able to renew their certificates remote. And we didn't have to they were able to suspend them and then later renew and then live with the same ID card as they had. But it was thanks to very close cooperation between private sector, public sector, academia. So we all understood that our ID card back then is or still is the pride of our nation. We understood that we can't go back on paper, and I think that was also a test for us back then, that we saw how dependent we are already on electronic identity. So we were lucky. Our legislative framework allowed us to do such beautiful technical solution that was thought by our architects, and luckily no cards were affected. So political will, political ability to take the responsibility, and then close cooperation between different sectors was definitely the thing why we survived this crisis. And I think it was the first digital summit back then. So Estonia was having the presidency, and that was also right that all the leaders gathered here in Kulttuuri Creative Hub, and we had to tell that actually within the cellar we have a massive problem, but we openly talked about it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main takeaways there. I mean, we sort of discussed the resilient digital society aspect of this panel discussion. When I think resiliency, I also think sustainability, not in terms of green programming, although of course that is relevant, no legacy and so on, but also the self-sustaining governance models that support digital societies beyond just 1 or 2 election cycles. Because, I mean, we've got people from many different countries around the world joining in, and this brings me to the first part of the panel discussion, shortcuts. What are the quick wins, you know? Yes, I understand that we need to build a self-sustaining governance model for a digital society, and that's great, but we just got elected, we've got 4 years, what do we do? So that's my question, what do we do?
Oh, it's difficult. Yeah, the problem is that in order to make change in society, it takes a bit more than the election cycle. And that has been proven in Estonia with X-Road. If we see the uptake with the EID, if you see the uptake with I-voting, so all the systems, it takes more time than the election cycle, which means that you should trust your technical people, definitely. You should trust your lawyers. You should trust that the society will take things up at some point, but you should also believe in the future, and not only protect your position, but really to be the political leader or leader in the organization that believes the vision and is able to execute it also with being afraid of losing the position. It might happen.
Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the things that I always like to tell leaders is that we've seen both in Estonia and elsewhere, not all countries, but many, that good digital transformation wins elections. So like people, if in your country the tax declaration takes 3 hours or 20 pages of paper, and your party is the one that puts it down to 2 minutes, I might remember that next time I go vote. So that's one of those things that can really improve the quality of life, and people usually don't forget that.
One thing that I would like, that I hope is that, let's say, political leaders would better understand how the technological hype cycle works. And this is unfortunate. It repeats every time. Like a couple of years ago, it was blockchain that was supposed to change everything. And there was no need to do anything old stuff, just blockchain. Now it's AI,
and here we are.
And AI will solve all your problems. We don't have to deal with those old systems anymore. And this will go over, and next stuff will go again. I think that actually this should be taught in universities, or even perhaps in secondary schools, especially if you are in the public kind of like a management area, how this technological hype cycle really works. And how we can improve the sustainability. I think Estonia has a lot to do in this area, because I think that we are using like a too low-level tools for creating those governmental information systems. They will be outdated at like a business functional level, not at the security level, or too fast. And we just cannot afford to program them using old tools, because the amount of those systems is just growing and growing and growing. And we don't have enough programmers, or their salary is too high, etc. So we need to get absolutely much better like a software development tools for the government to standardize across government, like not go like into some central system, not go into cloud and say that yes, this is one way to do, but rather we should have tools to create distributed systems that are like each other, easy to maintain and keep secure. But this requires, I don't know, 2, 3 election cycles, not one, not one, unfortunately.
It's funny, when you first said hype cycle, I wasn't sure whether you said hype cycle or life cycle, but then you ended on budgetary life cycles as well. I think this is one thing that many governments are famously bad at, to understand that IT life cycles just don't work the same way that other budgets do. And so if you just explain to people like, yes, this is a system that has a lifespan of 8 years. This is a system that has a lifespan of, actually, it's dead. Let's work on this right now. So just to sensitize political leaders, especially in the different specialty areas like healthcare, education, and so on, for those tendencies of IT systems to decay or need renewal at different times. I think that's quite critical. Tarmo.
I think the key here is the popular word called agility, which means that already I completely resonate with Arne's thoughts in that sense. But on top of that, when we build something or when we do this digital society, then we need to already think that if politicians are promising something, it's not final. So that the change should be already implemented in. The change should be one of the key functionalities there, which you don't see, but there should be budget, time, and efforts put in this as well. Because I really like this approach when what we have, that we have distributed systems, we have all the data available, we have security layers, we have electronic identity, we even have Estonian government code repository, which is public. And this is, I think, one of the key elements there as well, that why not we implement 100 times the same? Why not we take just the same one and do each of us is contributing and doing a bit better? Then we have 100 agile iterations instead of we are working in the silos. So that's probably one of the key elements.
I don't know what you're talking about. I think reinventing the wheel 100 times is a lot more time worthy and useful. But okay.
Florian, this is how lawyers are described.
Just in case you've been thinking about asking a question, I think we have a very small quick fire round of 30 seconds each, and then you do get the chance to ask questions as well. So if you can already think about your questions and get ready to raise your hand, that would be great. I think one of the last things that I briefly want to mention is the impact of EU-wide legislation, number 1 on us in Estonia, number 2 on other member countries, and number 3 also beyond the EU's borders. A very small example of the GDPR, we see that Brazil is looking at something similar, Sri Lanka is looking at, it's like it goes all around the world. So if we think about shortcuts to a resilient digital society, is there something that we can do better, or that where we would require other member states' input into regulating a shared digital society space, or do we think that we're on the right track?
I would say at the moment, maybe gentlemen go first.
You're the legal person.
No, but the thing is that do they feel that we have over-regulated the technical sphere at the moment or not? Because Arne is a technical guy and you as well. Because when I started at the ministry 2014, then there were just a few legal acts, and now we see them coming in more and more and more. We try to regulate the cyberspace. Different digital tools, solutions, so on. So what I'm actually throwing the question to the gentlemen. Do they feel that we are over-regulating?
You've got 20 seconds each.
Yeah, okay. I think that I would approach everybody who is not from EU. I think that take a look at the technical standards that are developed in order to satisfy EU legal requirements. Some of this stuff is really good. It's a cutting edge. Like, it makes sense to use the same approach. If we talk about the regulations, you can be like a little bit more modest, and it's some kind of cycle again, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think that the main problem is this over-regulation, because inside Europe we should have the same regulations, but still we don't have that single market which should be the same size than, for example, the US market. And just to give an example from football, the European Union is acting like a football team where every player at the same time is in defense, midfield, and attacking, and in the end they want to be goalkeepers as well.
So and coaches.
Yes. So, and the coaches who's sitting typically in Brussels, they should understand the situation that, and the main foundational problem there, once again, by my understanding, is trust.
Yeah.
If we have something good already in Estonia, why we don't trust that in Germany? If Germany has something excellent, why they don't trust in Poland, and so on. So this how we should create a network of our strengths, not to fight with each other.
I think you've just spoken to the hearts of many, many people in the room as well. Laura, one final thought.
Yes. So I think that for third countries, the very many different technical standards that come from regulations are certainly something to look for. EIDAS regulation, GDPR, and so on. Why to invent a wheel then when there is already a functioning legal framework? And we at Proud Engineers see that very many countries are following the route, trying to have the legislative system on par with the European one.
Yeah, I mean, there's the consideration, especially in the closer hemisphere of the EU for mutual recognition agreements and so on as well. So yeah, it's a pretty fuzzy boundary as well. We still have a good amount of minutes for questions as well. Any thoughts or questions from the audience right now? I see a hand raised by the fine gentleman who will be on stage in just a couple of minutes.
Thank you. Of course. So on the topic of resilience, 2 days ago, suddenly a couple of cables in the bottom of the sea were cut again. This time this was communications cables.
We don't know who it was though, right?
Germany, yeah, of course. Germany, Lithuania and Finland affected. So in the light of this and coming to think how all the government services are more pushed into cloud, and especially into clouds that are operated by companies in other countries, what are your thoughts on the kind of reflection of this on the resiliency of digital society and the physical infrastructure that in many of countries are actually vulnerable?
Thank God I'm not one of the panelists. Please. It's a good question.
Yeah, my viewpoint is very clear. I mean, I think that every country should have enough infrastructure, enough critical systems like in the country. And the amount should be big enough to keep the people who run them trained. I mean, like if it's just one system, it's not enough. I mean, like there must be a critical mass of system in the country. Something can be definitely outsourced for like handling peaks or whatever, but I think that, yeah, you cannot run the program if you don't have a computer. And if you cannot access the computer, you don't get the service. So it's as simple as that. We cannot like forget the physical aspect of this. And I think that it should be in country.
Yeah, I fully agree that the physical component is always there. So it's not that there is something magical, a cloud, and we can raise things there, but we still need physical space. So having the backup, the ability to be able to function from different physical spaces is definitely something to consider.
Tarmo?
Yeah, I completely agree. I would add that we should not only think in that sense, but vice versa as well, so that we should have our own virtual network, so that some key things are here, but we have at the same time some services are live in that sense when, I don't know, our friends from East are deciding to send a missile to our infrastructure, so that the digital society will still be alive. So This should be act as a modern digital architecture which does not is completely decoupled from the physical location.
I think actually to the point of the question that you raised, that Finland didn't lose all of its internet access all of a sudden precisely because there was a degree of redundancy inside the system, which shows that different parts of Europe are on different trajectories of that journey, but certainly that there is some redundancy in the system. It confirms that there needs to be more as well. I mean, when we talk about some countries that are in environmental disaster zones, we can talk about the Caribbean with hurricanes coming there, just on schedule every year. Then clearly there are some areas and regions that need to think about this more strongly than others as well. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Yes.
What was the reason that you decided to move from centralized to distributed kind of structure?
I think you wrote your master's thesis about that. Is that right?
But server actually...
And also from the security standpoint, did it improve security or not?
Several reasons, and kind of like all the aspects that we looked at indicated that the distributed system is better. And I would start from the legal one. So basically our legislation did not see this kind of like a middleman for exchanging the information. It was very clear that we have a governmental databases. It was regulated who can access this data. And in order to do this access via third party, we had to change regulation. Not just one act, but many database acts had to be changed. And kind of actually, when the X-Road went into production, we designed it exactly to the legislation. There was no need to change any legal act to make it work and have a legal value for the system. So that was one thing, legal. Second one was security. Of course, if you have this a central system, it's a honeypot. It's a prime target for attackers in one way or another, either to cause a disruption or to modify data or to get the access to the data. And of course, performance. I mean, if you route everything through some central system, network, computers, etc. So it was a natural way that if we have two parties who need to deal with each other, they should do it directly.
We have time for one more question, but it's also interesting that we are, we talk about the future, but we keep coming back to the core of what has made digital society in Estonia so strong. Any final questions or comments, thoughts, wishes for Christmas? Anything? Another one, yes, please.
You talked about the cable. I wouldn't imagine that this would happen in countries with sea, access to sea. It happens lots of time. In Armenia, basically. Somebody uses the tractor in the garden and the cable is cut and then the only cable for the entire region. But in our internal discussions, is it possible to have a country as an intranet when the external internet is cut? And what does it take to build such infrastructure at the national level? Would standards lead towards this? We are thinking about this.
Isn't that a throwback to 2007?
Dream with you.
Probably yes, but you have to test it. So and this is probably one thing that takes time and resources. Theoretically, yes, practically it's probably going to be very expensive. There have been kind of experiments by different countries to kind of cut away from the internet for one reason or another. And in some cases, those experiments have gone quite wrong for those countries. So, yeah, doable, but you really need to think it through.
If you have $100 million, your neighbor doesn't adopt it. Doesn't worth spending this $100 million.
Yeah.
I mean, if I remember correctly, didn't Estonia also have its own node that helped in repelling the 2007 attacks?
Sorry?
Didn't Estonia also rely on its own node and cutting off that in 2007?
But it was very limited, very selective.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for the good questions and the excellent answers as well. Please join me in thanking our expert panelists for this first part of the side event. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
So, hello from my side. My name is Kedi Välba. I'm the CEO and board member of Estonian software company Aktors. And I will introduce you two of the use cases which we chose as some of the resilient use cases to introduce to you. So, yes, next slide. So very briefly about what our company does. Together with Cybernetica and Arne, who was just on the stage, we are one of the companies behind the development of the initial version of X-Road, and since the very beginning, we have also done different integration and export projects all over the world. But we also focus on digitalization of the justice topic, which I'm going to talk more about today, and also finance and homeland security. So there was a lot of discussion about X-Road in the panel already, but this is a very good example of a resilient solution that Estonia has created. As most of you most probably know, X-Road is the national data exchange platform for Estonia and now also several other countries. And it's a standardized and secure way to exchange information. And some of the success factors we had for X-Road were the unified interface to all services, one entry point, and also the smooth handling of access rights. My second case is about digitalization of justice topic, where we have also invested quite a lot of time and resources. So we have created a case management system for the courts, where the paper-based solution, as we traditionally know, has been turned into a digital solution. So some of the points that we are talking about when we're talking about the digitalization of justice and its benefits, first of all, is the efficiency, the improved case management. For example, the digital system enables for faster data processing, better case management and handling of the cases, and also the workforce optimization, which means reducing of manual work and making it easier to manage large volumes of data digitally. Secondly, of course, the security. We are talking a lot about the data protection and the data protection rules, and the security is critical to safeguard the sensitive information that's especially moving in the justice solutions. And to ensure that in Estonia, we also have the digital signature tool, which is an additional layer of security on top of it. Also the authentication and the use of digital signatures and authentication mechanism reduces the risk of fraud, ensuring that the person behind the screen is who they are saying they are, and we can ensure the security is ensured. Then we're talking about the integration. This also is something that we have solved in Estonia with the interoperability platform X-Road, but on justice topics also the integration with other justice-related systems, let's say the police, prosecutors, lawyers, and so on. So we collect the whole ecosystem together that needs to be a part of the justice-making process. Then becoming paperless, because when we rely on the paper, the security isn't very well ensured. You can manipulate with paper can get lost, and so on. So shifting to a digital files and e-filing system, the courts and legal professionals can then significantly reduce the workload and also to integrate with different systems, as I mentioned earlier. Then we're talking about the ease of use of the system. First of all, the user-friendly interfaces that are necessary for intuitive and easy to navigate interface, because the regular citizen also has to understand the process very well to access the rule of law. And people without very strong technical background. And of course, also the automation is a very crucial part when we're talking about digitalization, because when we're using the automating tools, then we can make it easier for filing of different cases and also following the whole process, moving of the case from one court level to another, and so on. Accessibility. This is what we learned the hard way, especially during COVID times, that to ensure accessibility and use digital tools, you can also use the system from the distance. Let's say you don't need to physically go to the courthouse. And this is especially important to individuals who are living in a rural area, or they have some kind of disabilities and they are not able to go to the courthouse themselves. And of course also the language accessibility, because in case of a digital system, you can very easily switch from one language to another. I can bring you an example of Kurdistan, Iraq, where we have created a similar system like that, where we are using 3 languages, which is Kurdish, Arabic, and also English. Then the redundancy. This is something where we're talking about backups of the systems. We have a case where in one court there was a big fire and a lot of years worth of cases were destroyed. In case of a digital system, we have backups in multiple locations and we can access the information again very fast. And last but not least, the allocation and scheduling. It's possible to allocate the workload between the judges and employees evenly, access their calendars according to the workload they already have, and also it makes the lives of the judges easier, but also moving of one court case from one court level to another a lot faster. We have seen cases where one case is moving to another destination in a country for several months or even years. In case of a digital solution, it moves within seconds. So, in general, justice is one of the cornerstones of each country, and to have a resilient country, you need to make sure that everything is safely digitalized and the rule of law is accessible to all of the citizens. So this was a brief overview from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kedi. Do we have any questions from the audience straight away, whether it's about e-justice or the work on the X road? If not, then I have a small one. I think that Aktors is also doing some work chairing some working groups in the EU. When we talk about all of these developments in the interoperability space, whether we talk about data spaces or more widely data lakes, as some countries call it, where do you see the X road fit into these developments over the next few years, which will be the foundation of a resilient digital society?
Well, yes. Just to maybe comment firstly what we are a part of. As you mentioned, we are currently participating in two EU initiatives where EU is trying to engage the public sector. These are both quite recent developments. So Aktors is currently chairing the Digital for Development Hub private sector advisory group. We are the regional chair for Europe. And we are also a part of the Global Gateway Business Advisory Group. So these are two platforms to give feedback for the Commission and EU in general in how to better include the private sector in the process. But when we're talking about the interoperability and X-Road, then we also participate in the ITU GovStack initiative, which is then about creating building blocks for governments to implement and create their own e-government ecosystem. And we are currently actually chairing the information mediator building block, and this is the building block which is actually about interoperability, and we're very strongly standing for having the X-Road and open source approach also present. I would say the Indian approach is very actively presented in the group, so we are fighting hard for having also the Estonian technological stack represented. But I think when we're also looking at different EU priorities for next year, then digital public infrastructure is one of them, and interoperability falls under that very well. So I hope we can also share our expertise, the Estonian expertise of building up the e-government for about 30 last years with other countries in the world as well in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your input. Please join me in thanking Kedi for her presentation.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am hoping to inspire you a bit or kind of spark your imagination just a little bit. So my name is Priit Liivak. With me today on the stage is Kertti, Merimaa, and we are talking about personal government. Imagine a citizen experience where each interaction you do with your government is no more than 3 taps away on your phone. It's a device that you are carrying with you at all times, everywhere you go in the world. So you could be renewing your travel documents while commuting to work, or starting a new business while having lunch with your business partner. You could even get married while on vacation with your loved one. But personal government is a lot more than that. It's not only making services digital and then making them available on phone. It's also about making them adapting to every citizen's needs, to offering the services depending on the life events where people go through, and also simplifying the interface between myself as a citizen and the government, so that I don't need to understand the complexities of the government services that happen behind closed doors or behind the departments of the government. As a citizen, I want to only understand my opportunities and my obligations and have easy ways how I can meet those obligations. I also want to know about my data. I want to understand who is using my data, who is accessing my data, and what is the legal grounds or reasoning behind that. I want to have full transparency about the use of my data. So, in summary, this is the new paradigm to service delivery that personal government aims to offer. It's a simplification of government into my opportunities, my obligations, and my data. Adding on top the mobility that accessing your government services through a mobile device can offer, provides a good foundation for the resiliency for the government, so that I could use all of the services wherever I am in the world. But the same thinking and same patterns can be applied for complex subdomains within the government as well. So we can take a look at the tax administration, where the same thinking about my obligations and my opportunities can be applied. When doing taxes as an individual or a business, all I want to know what are my opportunities and obligations when facing tax authority, and I want to have simple means how I can meet those obligations in an effortless way. The same applies for data. I want to know what data is being collected about me, and I want to understand how tax administration perceives my businesses from the government's point of view. What is my rating as a business in the eyes of tax administration, or what data is being collected about me, so that I can better comply with the obligations, but also use those insights for the benefit of my business development. So post-digital tax administration is in this sense very similar to any other services. We aim to hide the complexity of taxation from the citizen's point of view and simplify the taxpayer experience, be it either for an individual or for a business, to enable seamless and automated taxpayer experience.
And when we move on to the next domain, healthcare, then in healthcare, this type of interconnectedness and digitalization brings about whole new vertical of value, pushing very strongly person-centered and value-based care. When you're able to manage all your health in your single place, it gives you a lot more information and ability and motivation to really take up an active and accountable role in your health. Let's look at some of the examples. Our health journeys, we are often not alone in them. Aside from taking care of my own health, I often have to take care of other people's health. For example, my children or my elderly parents. And being able to have an overview and manage their health also at the same spot makes it so much easier for me to take care of my loved ones. And also this type of interconnectedness brings about an opportunities to set up whole new types of services. For example, proactively using pharmacogenomic assessments in your medication ordination, or perhaps also book appointments to the doctors from a single point and single solution, instead of having to look up each of the care providers separately and spending time on that. Also, this kind of interconnectedness helps you to take care of your loved ones when there's a physical distance between you. In this demo, we have shown how to share your video consultations with your family members as easy as it should be, because we want to be involved, to be informed and empowered to really help our loved ones. And when we're talking about these kind of consultations, medical consultations are often very information heavy and very emotionally loaded. So you may want to take notes ahead of time to save up some of the brain capacity. And later on, as the consultation is done, you may want to enjoy the virtual assistant taking notes or summarizing the discussion, so that you and your doctor can focus on what's most important: creating empathetic, humane, and meaningful connection. But even though health journeys are often shared, they're always also as unique as your fingerprints. No two journeys are actually the same. So being able to have an overview of your most important health data gives you motivation and ability to really take care better of your chronic conditions, or perhaps also prevent from future health loss. When tracking the progress of different measurements, you may want to include data from different sources. For example, your wearable devices. And being able to connect this data also brings in a new layer of activity and accountability. And what you saw right now is just the gamification. Using gamification in these kind of services has a very big impact and is very useful for people to motivate them to set up their own personal health goals together with their doctor, really meaningfully track the progress, and also take action to achieve these goals. And when achieving, get very practical rewards for it. So when we're talking about digital healthcare, it really should be personal. And this personalization helps to really push towards more accessible care, but also helps us to achieve better health outcomes through more motivated, more informed, and more accountable people, and people taking care of their own health. But also, through this personalization, you can really aim to achieve better, effective use of the little resources that we have in healthcare. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that presentation, and I think it was extremely visual, graphic, tangible, very easy to understand for the audience as well, what exactly it could mean to live in such a digital society that offers these options. Do we have any questions from the audience as well? If not, I have one, worry not. That I didn't tell them in advance, by the way. My personal question actually goes in the direction of this personalization. There are more and more countries that talk about nudging, whether there's a nudging policy as well. What do you think is the best approach? Should it be a sector-specific approach that, hey, if in healthcare I have decided to never do a cancer screening or something, then I'm not going to push that at that person? Or how do we deal with nudging in these kinds of formats?
Nudging is very similar to gamification. And nudging is all about helping to motivate people towards making the right decision and making the wrong decisions as hard and not convenient as possible, right? So it really depends on the service and on the what you want to achieve, in which way you want to use nudging. And I do think that in healthcare, nudging really has its spot, but at the same time, it's all about the literacy and understanding that we don't just want to blindly nudge people, but we also don't want people to be blindly nudged. We want them to be as informed and as understanding of what is around them so that they can really make meaningful decisions their own.
So we're not reaching a point in time where my phone just sort of books a prostate screening for me for next week. That's good stuff.
It should be good balance between being informed.
But this is also interesting that every society gets to decide the red line for itself and these things. You wanted to add something?
Yeah, I mean, your phone might do that if you opt to use some AI tools in the future to do that. But then it's by choice.
Absolutely.
So I have nothing to add on the nudging topic, because it is something that we need to be very careful about. It has to be done in balance. So if a government starts doing it too much, there's going to be erosion of trust in the process. If there's sufficient amount of it, then the results and the outcomes talk for themselves. So then not sure if it's nudging or if it's a clever way to make policy.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking both Priit and Kertti for their presentation. Thank you very much.
Historically, Datel has been building geo-information systems, so e-cadastre systems, city planning systems, everything to do with geospatial data. But today, I'm not going to talk about that. Today, I'm going to talk about the reason why I joined Datel. And this is because we started integrating satellite data into our geo-information systems. So first, we all, of course, thought that we're going to save the world, and we want to do some deformation monitoring, because it's possible with the European Space Agency satellites to detect deformation in millimetric scale from satellites. This is an example for Mexico City, for example. Mexico City is a famous case because the city was built on a lake, and they are pumping out groundwater from the aquifer. So the city is basically sinking. And for the last 2 years, parts of the city have sank more than 60 centimeters. So this creates a lot of problems in the infrastructure and so on. From the picture, I quickly explain the color code as well. Red, dark red is subsidization, and green areas are stable. So you can actually very well see what kind of areas are stable and what are not. But the problems themselves are on the borders. Because as you can imagine, if one side of the freeway is sinking, the other side is not, there's going to be a problem. So you can do that with satellites. Another example from that topic is from mining. This is actually an old underground mine, and it collapsed. And with satellites, we can detect that movement quite easily, and in millimetric scale. So you can actually see on the graph there when it started collapsing and when it finally finished collapsing. And the satellites have been up there since 2016, so you can use it basically like a time machine. You can go back in time, see what has happened, what the trends have been, and so on. Now, my presentation is going to be short because I'm already on my last slide. This was deformation monitoring, but it was not enough for us. So we decided to start comparing satellite data directly to the registers. And with that, our first idea was, okay, illegal construction. This is a big problem in all parts of the world. So what we are doing here, we are taking data from building registry and comparing that to satellite imagery. So we can detect all the buildings that are not registered in the database. Now there's another functionality for that. We, at first, because in Estonia we don't have real estate tax, high real estate tax, we were figuring, okay, we can detect the illegal buildings, it's a safety issue, right? But traveling the world a little bit, especially for Spain, we figured that the taxation part is even more interesting, because Spain has high real estate taxes and all the pools are taxed as well. But sometimes it happens that people don't like to declare these pools. So we can be used as instead of relying on neighbors snitching on a neighbor, we can be snitchers from space. And we can tell the local governments that you have issues here, here, and here, and help with tax collection this way. So this was my short presentation, and I'm open to questions.
Yes, thank you. Do we have any questions for Aimo? Yes, you are worried about your swimming pool, or you raised? Ah, okay. Okay.
about how often data is being updated, actually? So how frequently do you receive new data to run the models and to detect new objects?
Yeah, it depends. With the deformation monitoring, if you're using European Space Agency satellites, then the revisit time is 12 days right now. Because one satellite crashed a few years ago, sadly. With the construction detection, you can get the new data every week, but it usually, all our clients usually take it once a month or once a year or quarterly, depending on their capacity.
Do you combine it with some other data as well, like aerophoto or something?
Yes, we do. With this monitoring part, we compare it to satellite imagery. With detecting illegal construction, we compare the INSAR satellites to the satellite imagery and also the other databases like building registry, tax registry, and so on. One thing I wanted to mention, or forgot to mention because I'm a little nervous, is that it doesn't have to be only illegal construction. We can also detect illegal mining. If we have a register to compare it against, we also can detect illegal forestry if we have, again, a register to compare it against.
Yeah, that was one of my questions about deforestation potentially playing or being one of the use cases for this. Has this been used for that purpose anywhere?
Yes.
Can you tell us the country?
It's been used in Australia.
Okay. Yeah.
But not by us.
Okay. I don't think we're recording the session either, so we should be fine on this.
But it's a new topic, so yeah, these kind of examples have been used, but it usually concerns like 2 years of really highly educated people doing an analysis. But what is different with us, we automate it all. And it doesn't take 2 years to get an analysis, but it takes like 2 weeks.
Awesome. Then thank you very much for your presentation. And yes, please join me in thanking him. Thank you.
We are a coding school, but we operate in coding schools, but we also develop coding school platforms. So this means we have a few schools of our own where we do all the work, admit students, run all the curriculum, but we are also developing the platform for running other coding schools and also to create curriculum for other coding schools. I think we can do it with pretty good results, faster, cheaper, and probably with more efficiency than other methods. But let me then talk you through it in the next few slides. But maybe first question to you, if you think of a school, what comes to your mind? Like maybe 3 things. Like a school, you close your eyes. Maybe there were like teachers, yeah? Classrooms, Laura had a classroom memory. And maybe also a timetable, anyone? Timetable? So good news is we don't have any of that. So we don't have teachers, we don't have classrooms, and we also don't have a real timetable to speak of. So how does the thing work? But maybe before going into that, I would like to tell you a little example about say modern product development and how it relates to operating coding school. So I'm thinking maybe some of you have this app on your phone as well called Bolt. This is an Estonian startup. You can order food, taxi, a scooter, and a few other services. I had the chance of asking their CEO and founder, Markus Villig, about how often does Bolt update their product? How often do they send a new version of the product to the users, to the market? Do you know how often? Do you want to guess? It's about 2 times per week on the front end. So that makes up to about 100 times a year. They're changing their product, they're updating it, they're bringing a new version to the market. And then even more recently, I talked to the VP of engineering and he said, 2 times a week. We are updating the backend service 600 times a week. So this is the frequency of product development. Yet somehow we train the people who should build Bolt and Uber and other services with a very, very different system, right? So if you think of a sort of formal education model, then from scratch to an accredited curriculum in a university level takes about 5 years, I'm told, like from the idea until it's fully accredited. And then it takes another 3 to 4 years for students to study on this curriculum. And then it perhaps takes another year for them to actually go to the job market. So what we have is a 10-year feedback loop. So you have a system which from initiation to market test has a 10-year loop of feedback. And somehow these people need to be relevant to the market with their skills. So this is quite kind of a hard conflict in a way. So in our operation model, we are running about 10 iterations per year because there are 10 different batches of students starting each year. And with each batch, we do something different. We do something different with the curriculum. We do something different with the way how we operate things. So of course, it's not the level of Bolt. It's not 100 times a year, but it's also not once in 10 years, right? So we iterate much faster. And for that reason, we are more relevant to the community of employers in the end. So this is what we're mostly about, rapid skills development. To make sure that we can take a person with very limited or even no IT skills. Maybe there are even one person or two persons in the room like that. I doubt it, but maybe there are. Basically, we are able to take a person off the street and in less than 1 year, they are at the level where they can compete for a job on the market. So this is our measure of excellence, so this is our KPI. Does a person get enough skills to be hired on the market? Don't care about the diploma. I don't care if it took them 8 months or 9 months or 12 or 13 months to finish the curriculum. The main thing we care about is, do they get the job? Because the market votes with money, their own money, right? It doesn't matter what it says on the diploma. If somebody's willing to pay money for your skills, then probably you have the skills. Because usually people and companies are not angry at their money. They wouldn't hire you otherwise. So this is the main measurement of rapid skills development. And how do you know that if you're succeeding or not? Maybe a few words about how we came to be. This is a quick view of the founders. Some of them are famous tech entrepreneurs from this country, but some also are people from different walks of life, some in communication, some in IT, some in legal. So I think it's super important when running such an initiative that you have people and companies from multiple spheres of life. And that gives resilience to the school as well, because at different times, you need different type of help. This is a quick view of our timetable, how we have developed. And of course, as every good startup starts with solving your own problem, because back a few years, Estonia had a real problem for short of talent. So we really lacked the number of people our companies wanted to hire. And it was pretty clear that traditional way of training people takes too long time. And even when it finishes, they don't have the skills that the companies need. So there needs to be another solution, which was then created. But by now, we are already international. We have another school in Finland, a couple in Estonia. And also next year, we are moving a little up the stream towards the high school level, because mostly currently we are doing adult reskilling. But then starting next year, we're also entering high schools with a, let's say, coding light type of approach, but to get people hooked earlier in their life, so they have an idea that actually a technical career is something to be desired and technical education is something to be desired. And of course, the everlasting problem, I think, of gender disparity, at least in this country, it's a bit difficult to get more than 20-25% of females into technical jobs and positions. So this is also something we are addressing more head-on next year by creating a separate program called Code Women. Right. So what does it all have to do with resilience? So there's two things. One thing that we discussed before, like what happens if your country is cut off the internet or if you don't have the physical infrastructure. Same question is, how do you run your country infrastructure if you don't have the talent? If you don't have local homegrown talent that actually to run all these things. So to have a resilient setup, you need to have people to run the systems. And the second part of resilience and coding school is actually, I think one of our founders have said it really well, that Jõhvi school is actually a tool for democracy. It's like, in what way? But it's a very simple way. So people who have limited choice are easy to manipulate. So if somebody only speaks one language, doesn't have any particular marketable skills, then they can be manipulated by a political party or a local minigarch or oligarch because they don't have a choice. But if people have skills, if they speak languages, some of them computer languages, then they have options in life and it's harder to manipulate with them. So that brings up this kind of resilience in society, that you cannot trick these people so easily because they can go elsewhere, start a life, and they're not dependent on a local minigarch or political party. So that's the resilience part of having a coding school. And the ways we can cooperate with other countries. Number one, of course, if you want to run your own coding school, more than welcome to come to us. We'll help you set up one in record time. And the other option is if you have already an existing educational institution, maybe you want to run our curriculum as a white label, totally fine as well. Maybe somebody who has a technical, but not technical, but let's say business university or business vocational school wants to add a technical track instead of creating one themselves, can probably cooperate with us. We're also inviting students to come and study here in Estonia or in Finland. I think currently we have students from 33 different nationalities, so it's quite a mixed bunch as it is, so quite welcome. And of course, as mentioned before, also a lighter version program for learning to code for high school level. So these are the things how we could help. And yep, I think that's pretty much the last 30 seconds we have. So basically, the setup looks like this, that you have a learning management system. There are 1,000 of them in the world, but ours is very specifically designed to support this kind of methodology that we use with no teachers, no classrooms. Second, you have the curriculum, which means different tasks and problems. It's a problem-based learning type of approach. So different tasks and problems that the students will follow to fulfill this journey. And thirdly, of course, because we are a school operator, we also know a few things, how to operate a school, what kind of business models are available, how to set these things up, what kind of roles you need, what kind of funding is needed, and these kind of things. So these are the three things we can offer. And of course, if you're interested talking further, we're still here for a few minutes, or if there's a question from the audience.
Yes, I've seen people open your website on their smartphones already.
Have they?
I know also for a fact that there are some countries in this room represented that have thought or ongoing sort of build-up of these programs in their countries. Any questions right now? Yes. The flying microphone is on the way.
Thank you very much for this nice presentation. There is a problem with online type of programs, with independent e-learning. I know that your model is a bit different, but what is the completion rate of such programs? Successful completion rate?
Yeah, completion rate. So maybe first we need to look at the fact that we are accepting everyone who wants to come as long as they speak English at B2 level. You don't have to have any prior experience. And the first thing we do is we have like a 3-week coding camp type of admissions program. And if you can get through that, then you're admitted to school. So it's like a 3-week-long interview process where you have to code about 50 hours a week. So if you get through that, then there's a chance to be admitted. And this process usually weans out about 60% of people. So 100 people turn up, 30 end up in the school. So there's kind of like a first filter in a way. And maybe it's not a filter in a negative way because the persons will find out if they like this type of learning. They will also find out what life of a programmer looks like. And sometimes it can be like, oh, it's very romantic, they earn a lot of money, they build new fancy tools. Bloody hard work, to be honest. So in those 3 weeks, it's almost a free job counseling as well. You will figure out that actually, not for me. Right? So in a way, we're not looking at it as a negative, that 1/3 passes. We're saying this is a good thing, they learn something, we learn something, everybody's happy, and it only costs you 3 weeks. Apart from that, then we're looking at how many people get through. I think it's about 55–60% from there on who finish the whole program. But it's also like with any other kind of school. Oftentimes people are hired off their feet before they finish the program. So then I'm not like too sad if they didn't graduate, as long as they got a job, right? So if they got the job already a little bit before the end of the school, that's fine. I'm not too kind of sad about it. About how many people... Both happens, yeah. Life also happens sometimes because this type of training, this problem-based learning, and this whole super active type of training is quite hard. So sometimes also people realize that they don't actually, let's say, have the motivation or willpower to go through with it. And sometimes just life happens, yeah.
I will say that I'm completely on the other side of the spectrum. I just started my PhD because I don't learn from the horror stories of other people that have done their PhD. But it sort of represents the dichotomy of education systems that are sort of not even competing, but they just exist in a shared space right now. What I find so fascinating is the KPI of just people getting jobs after this that are relevant to the education that you guys offer. I mean, there's a litany of people at whether it's Cybernetica or other IT companies that started their IT degree, got hired after year 1 or year 2, and the wisdom is almost sort of in the industry. If you finished your master's in IT, you're probably not that good, because otherwise you would have been hired some way along the road, right? And so this is sort of turning that KPI on its head and saying, you know what, actually, if you're gone, that's a good, or like, because you got a job offer, that's a good thing, right? That shows that the program works. Any last quick question that we can answer, or is everybody happy?
I have maybe one comment.
Yes.
So it's not only that we are measuring as the main KPI, do people get a job? We also don't get paid if they don't. Because it's a result-based model. So students don't pay upfront. They only pay us if they are earning money. So literally, put your money where your mouth is.
Hopefully not quite literally, but okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. Please give a round of applause, not just to Lauri, but also ourselves, because this is the end of the side event, and we wish you a wonderful rest of the time for day 2 at Talent Digital Summit. It's been a pleasure to have you here, and we hope to see you again in the future. We and the other folks from ITL and all the Estonian IT companies will be around at Digital Summit as well to have a chat with you if you so wish. Thank you very much. Thanks to all of us.
Thank you.